about the story of Dido Elizabeth Belle drew you in and made you say, yes, I need to be a part of this project? This speaks to me.
Well, it came to me in the form of a postcard print of the painting, the infamous painting. And it was everything that the painting said to me. The painting spoke to me. There was Dido so confident and so and placed in the position that in art history we've not really seen a person of colour prior to this. Before, standing there with equal value to her cousin, and I wanted to know who she was, why was she so beautifully dressed, why did she look wealthy, who was the girl standing next to her, but most importantly, who commissioned the painting? Like, who was the person who clearly had enough love and courage to commission the painting? So for me, it was all about the history, and then it was about going back and doing research and then creating my vision for the story that I wanted to tell, really.
Okay. And Gugu, what about Belle spoke to you and made you want to jump into the project as well? Like, yes, this is me. I need to do this.
Yeah, so many things. Again, the fact that it's inspired by a real painting, knowing that Dido was a real person, that was just so intriguing to me. Because I'd never really seen anybody of mixed race represented historically in this period. We've got a plethora of films that explore the slave trade and the American experience of the slave trade, and I never really experienced anything from the British perspective. And Dido's mother being a slave but her father being in the aristocracy, I thought, oh, this is kind of unique and complex and something that has not been explored on film before. So I thought, wow, this is, I really just thought it was just fascinating and something that, a story that needed to be told.
And speaking to the complexity of the role, how did you prepare for that? Because there were so many different parts of Belle that she had to kind of get to know and explore. Yeah. So how did you?
Yeah, well, we talked a lot about, with Amma about Dido's kind of journey and really charting her sort of trajectory from a girl to a woman and everything that she goes through in that sort of Jane Austen kind of coming out moment of their lives with her sister cousin played by Sarah Gadon. And for me, that was kind of really helpful to be able to work out, at what point, because, we film completely out of context. So, you're sort of going, okay, where are we in the journey? Am I a woman yet? Can I speak? Can I stand up for myself yet? Or am I still accepting of everything that's
how strong do I need to be in this scene? Or how much of a wallflower although she was never a wallflower.
Exactly, but harnessing that naivety that is, as we talked about at the Q&A, or Amma mentioned, it's not that Dido is unintelligent. It's just that she has lived a very sheltered life, and so being able to kind of just access that freshness of experiencing these things for the first time. So that was really exciting, and also to be able to work with this incredible cast and really, really experienced actors that really, when you're surrounded by them, they make you better because they're the natural quality that they bring to the set and the experience and the nuances in their performances was really something that I sort of aspired to kind of live up to too. So yeah, there was so much, and also the story is so romantic as well. Even though it's historical and there's some difficult themes running through it, and I think that the romance really sort of swept me along when I first read it, and I just thought it was beautiful.
Okay. Being that you both are women of color, I know that Hollywood, America's Hollywood isn't, we're not completely open. They're not completely open to the subject right now of women directing and acting, women of color. So can you talk a little bit about the process that you, from seeing the initial portrait to getting the film on camera, if you ran into any issues along the way, being women or being women of color, specifically?
Well, I mean, unlike the period that Dido Belle grew up in, I think our issues with class, race, identity, all of those things are more subversive. They're more subtle, and it's a lot more difficult to say this is happening because I'm a woman, or this is happening because I'm a woman of color. Mm-hmm. The process for me, as I say, was about receiving the postcard, and then I was actually contracted as a writer and a director to kind of, the project had a life prior to me coming on board, and then kind of came to a place where it was starting again by the time it was sent to me. And so it was about me, first of all, trying to inject. What I do is I try and walk in the shoes of my characters, and I say, who would I be if I existed at this time? So piecing together Dido's history in the way that I could, and using, if you like, fictional elements that injected, I'll be honest, lots of myself into there. So my mum watched the movie and was like, wow, she's feisty like you. But so for me it was about piecing it together, and I really didn't encounter any difficulties at that point, other than sometimes there were questions about how feisty Dido was. Was she too strong? Was she too feisty? And my answer would always really be, well, because it would really be referencing specific lines. And so my question would be, well, if Elizabeth was saying this, Elizabeth is Dido Belle's white cousin, would you feel the same way? Which would usually get people to think, and they'd suddenly think, well, probably not. Well, then you've got to ask yourself the question, why do you feel this about Dido Elizabeth Belle? And I would always find that it easier when I encountered those kind of questions, and really not knowing where they come from, because, you know, as a writer and a director, you've also got to listen. You know, I have a rule that if 3 people have an issue with a certain thing, then I've got to listen, no matter how important it is to me. So trying to balance that thing between, well, is this a difficulty because she's a woman of colour and it makes people nervous to see a feisty woman of colour on screen, or is it because she really is too feisty and therefore might be unlikable to an audience? So that was my thing. Apart from that, I will have to say to you, you know, I experienced nothing but support from my financiers, some of who had financed my first movie anyway, and some of whom had even been on the judging panels of award ceremonies, you know, prior to me making Belle, that had given my first film award. So, you know, they knew my work and were kind of confident in my work, and thankfully confident in me. So I didn't really, there's nothing that I could really say. I mean, prior to doing Belle, I think, you know, I'd gone through situations. I do remember one particular financier saying, will you be wearing high heels on set? And which I just thought was quite a randomly funny question.
Right.
But you know, that of course that we absolutely know he would never have asked a man. But I can't say that I really experienced anything that, you know, nobody ever made me feel like my colour stood in the way, because I think once you're in the room and they've decided they're going to make the movie with you, they're already over that. I think the issues come before you get in the room and whether that door's going to open or not in the first place, and then you're not there anyway. And what I always tell people is you need to have moved on from that anyway. That door is so far down the corridor, by the time they've decided not to open it to you, you're moving on to the one that is going to open. And at that point, once they let you in, there's never going to be an issue, I don't think, that you can't get over. So
okay. Cool. Well, on a little bit of a lighter note, the costuming in the movie was gorgeous. So can you please talk a little bit about what it was like having to wear those beautiful big dresses, and did you have the corsets on? And
yes, every day. In fact, my first fitting, I just got off an 11-hour flight from LA and went straight to my first costume fitting, which was a shock to the system. But
sorry.
No, it was also because, you know, some of the costumes were actually made to measure, like the beautiful fuchsia dress that I wear and the grey dress when I first get engaged to James Ashford. Oliver Ashford.
Please don't say you get married to James Ashford. My heart would sing.
The thing is, because the real actor is called James.
That's right.
That's why I made music. So you know, it really was an experience for me because, you know, I won corsets briefly at drama school for sort of a restoration comedy project or a dance project for sort of a couple of hours in the afternoon while we're doing a period dance. So it was really getting used to wearing them every day, and obviously not being able to dress yourself, you know, so dressing just took a whole extra 20 minutes of the morning to be able to be laced into the corset by a dresser, Katie, who was amazing. And, you know, we kind of made it a process, like I lit a candle, we listened to music, and we're like, okay, here we go again, let's just do this.
You really are folded in, literally. I mean, you know, when they take off those corsets, you know they've been in them, you can see the evidence on their backs, because it is.
And I mean, we try not to have them too tight, you know, because for practical, you know, you could definitely, for vanity's sake, have them very, very tight if you wanted to, but then, 45 minutes into your potentially 12-hour day, you're going to be asking for it to be looser.
Right. Or
You go,
fainting.
oh, look how tiny my waist is, ha. And then actually, in the practicality of the schedule, it's, you kind of get a bit more real about it. You go, I've got to survive this day, let alone sort of have an amazing silhouette. So it became a balance. But I mean, of course, it's like all your sort of childhood princess fantasies coming true, especially the dress that we wore for the Vauxhall Gardens with the big panier, kind of dangerous liaisons, kind of hip pad baskets, panier's basket in French, and so that was kind of really fun, and it's a balance, because on some days when it's raining you would never know it, but I was wearing Wellington boots underneath my dress to get to set. I'd always wear the actual real shoes for the scene, but it's not as glamorous as it looks and is made to look through the whole production.
But there's something beautiful for a storyteller and a director to see your characters in character and suddenly come in those 18th century dresses and with the little fans and the little handbags and I can remember the first time both seeing Gugu as Dido, Belle, and also seeing Elizabeth, Sarah Gadon as Elizabeth, and suddenly this vision that I've been holding in my head for all of these years is suddenly outside of my head for everybody else to see. And I think whatever the movie is that you do, but particularly with a costume drama, seeing them in character, there's something very special.